So now that we've talked about opportunities and the various examples and lists and cards and labels, let's see how all this works in action. And what we're going to do is work from a couple different examples. We'll talk through those. And to do that and to create our opportunities board, we're not going to do it from scratch. We're going to use one of those jump start templates. And I'm going to provide you with the links to those templates as part of this video. And I've got it through this lesson, just an easy way for me to reference those links. So I'm going to do it through a links board, but again, you'll be able to reference other links. But we're going to start with opportunities, and I have a board that I created called Template Opportunities. So this particular board is something that I've created. It's part of my Trello login called InfoShare. And what we're going to do is make a copy of this. So everybody can see this, people have access to it, but you can't make changes to it because you don't have permission to. So the way that we can change it and have access to it ourselves is by going over to the right side where it says Menu, clicking on More, and then looking for an option called Copy Board. And once we see that, we're going to click on that and we're going to name it Opportunities. And below, we're going to go ahead and keep this option as private the same. We don't want to change that. We're also going to keep the cards because there is one card here that we'll talk about near the end, and we'll click on Create. Once we've done that, we now have our own opportunities board. And I'm going to go ahead and you can see here that Jimi Hendrix is the member. Jimi Hendrix is the account that I'm using for Trello. I'm going to close this menu bar out. You can see that it's now called Opportunities. If I click on Trello at the top, you can see that within my boards, I now have a board called Opportunities. I'm going to drill back inside that again. And we're now going to go through some examples so that you can see what it's like to track your various opportunities using this particular board. So again, opportunities are any type of job that could possibly happen, didn't end up working out. It's just the overall picture and way to track everything that's coming across your universe in terms of job opportunities. So the first two examples we're going to talk about are job postings that you saw on a site like LinkedIn. So we'll use LinkedIn as an example. And in a situation like that, we'll work from those two examples. Earlier, when we looked at the list slide, we talked about all those different statuses of an opportunity. And here you can see them listed, and they're broken down into active and closed. So in this section with these first four cards, we have things like active in play, applied online or submitted, interview scheduled, in process, post-interview wait. Those are all things related to an opportunity that you have that's active. The next set, as I scroll to the right here, are things that are closed. And I have a lot of different types of closed lists here because there are a lot of ways that things can get closed out. Opportunities can end in a lot of different ways. So we'll talk about some of those. And some of these you may not end up using. You may also find that you have lists and workflow elements that you'd like to include other than what I have. And that's totally okay. This is just a place to start. So in example one, we're going to talk about applying for a job you saw on LinkedIn. And so the way that we're going to do that is by going to the list active, applied online, or submitted. We're going to add a card. And the format that we're going to use for cards is to always include the name of the company followed by the position. So here I'm going to put in Rich Industries and use a dash, and we're going to say that the position is an information security development architect. So I'm going to use a lot of technical titles here for positions, but it doesn't matter, whatever the position is. So I'm going to go ahead and click add, and we now have that particular opportunity up on our board in the column. And so what I want to do is go ahead and click on that particular card. And inside that card, you can see a lot of fields that are available to us. So for example, we can put in a description for this position. We can also add comments, and we're going to add a lot of comments related to this job. There's also a place to add attachments. So we'll take a look at all those items. But first, what I want to do is just add a quick comment and say, noticed this position on LinkedIn, thought it looked interesting, don't know anyone in the firm, So just applying by myself. So what's really important here, when you're tracking all of your opportunities, there are a lot of conversations and a lot of activities with different companies, different people, your network, your recruiters, and it's just essential that you take good notes on the conversations you have about different positions or the conversations you have with people. So the activity log and comments are a great way to do that. And so for the description field, you could come up with something a little bit more high level, and you could say this position is a more senior level role, and I'm going to save that. And so the difference between the description and the activity is that the description is something that it's kind of, I like to think of it as a hard fact that's attached to the particular position. You can use it for whatever you want, and a lot of times I don't even use the description, but I think in this case, this provides a good example of how you might be able to use it. Just key facts associated with a position, where the activity are those conversations and actions that you've taken related to it. So in this case, we applied online and we noted that here. And I'm also going to attach the document of the job description associated with it. So I have a couple different descriptions here. And so I can see that we have the Rich Industries job description. So I'm going to double click on that. And you can see that the job description now is attached inside of this card. And if I click on the attachment, it will also display and pop up on my screen. So really helpful to have all this information like the attachments, conversations, activities, all these things. And there are other options and things we can do with the card, but this is just a really good start here to what we want to do to track this position. So let's say that Rich Industries gets back to us. There's a recruiter named Joe who contacts us and he wants to schedule an interview. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, heard from Joe, who is a recruiter at the firm. He and I scheduled an interview with me and a few people next week. So once that's in, I'll go ahead and close this window out, and you can see that there are these different icons that are listed. So here we have 2 comments, we have 1 attachment, we also had a description. So all this information is tracked at the card level. And like we talked about, we scheduled an interview with Joe. So what we want to do is move this card into this column. 2 ways we can do that. 1, we can move the card by clicking and holding and just dragging it over. That works, very easy. The other thing we can do is that we can click into the card and there's an option under actions called move. And if you click on that and then click on lists and just select that list that we were just moving that card to, that's another way to do that. And if I hit the X and we go back, you can see that that particular card was moved. If we also click back into the card, you can also see the activity associated with that card. You can see that I've moved it from one list to another list. So all of that's tracked inside the Trello cards, all the activities that you have. Okay, so let's say that we had an interview and we want to make notes on it, and we then want to take action in terms of the next workflow item. So I'll go into the card and I'll put in some details about the conversation. I'll say, met with Susan and Bob. Meetings went well. They want me to come back, but I need to wait and hear from them. And so what we'll do in this case is now we've got those notes and we can move that into post-interview wait. So we had the interview and this is our bucket to let us know that these are the interviews that we've had where we're just waiting for some next steps. Okay, so now we've heard back from the recruiter Joe. Joe called back, said to come in next Monday at 2 p.m. That's great, so we'll keep that activity there. And now what we want to do is move that back into interview scheduled or in process. And then let's say we have that interview and we receive an offer, but we don't particularly like that offer, so we're going to go ahead and decline that. So what we'll do is we'll go into the card and we'll say, had second round, went okay, received offer, but not what I was looking for in terms of comp passing. And so that completes our notes. And so now what we can do is we can drag this card over to the right, and where we can, there's some options here. One of them is offered but declined. So this is a column that just represents anytime we've received an offer and we've decided not to take that particular position. So we have a lot of detail in this card that we can now reference, and we can look back over the history of that card and see a lot of information related to it. So really powerful when you think about tracking cards and how you track opportunities with these specific cards.